Well, Matt Cardona's on the show this week, so it kind of got me thinking about, me and Adam talked earlier in the show that he really got himself over through Twitter and YouTube with Z True Long Island Story and just kind of his Twitter presence. And I kind of feel that, Dolph Ziggler did the same thing around that time with this hashtag heel shtick that he was doing, which I think actually genuinely did get over. And while wrestling kind of took a little while to get around to this and kind of embrace the social media landscape and stuff, we have seen some wrestlers using really effectively to make stars of themselves.
Yeah, right. And I think it's also it's up to discoverability in general for wrestling. Like I don't think, Ricochet and Will Ospreay wouldn't be where they are had it not been, like the stuff they were doing in New Japan together and generally speaking, just on the indie scenes. Like I think the clips of that were more important than the actual New Japan official live streams of that going around. It's those clips of them flipping next to each other that everyone's going, that's the stuff that really got people talking, and that's where all the conversation around it happened. And I think it's, that's obviously every industry has benefited from the ability to discover things more easily and immediately engage with your fans. But I think wrestling has had this extra element that's added to it. And that's, like you said, things like your Zack Ryders and your Dolph Ziggler's using social media to get themselves over. And you've had people use it even more cunningly than that. And you've got the likes of Matt Hardy using it to further the broken Matt Hardy storyline. And I think he turned himself into an absolute phenomenon in wrestling at a time when, Matt Hardy's stock in wrestling was probably the lowest it's ever been. He wasn't working for the major company that he made his name in. He was floating around doing indie shows and stuff. And then, he creates this character and this world. And because it's so specifically him, and social media gives him the full control of the way that character is presented to the public, there's none of that. Hi, Kevin Dunn. Can I do it this way? Oh no,
Yeah.
sorry, we're doing it with 100 camera angles. Fine, because it was allowed to be specifically the way Matt wanted to do, and he was allowed to build on the story they were telling on Impact and stuff like that. Like you really could get into and get to grips with the character, and I think that same thing happened. Even people have even used it to force WWE to give them a chance. Like Drake Maverick is a great example of that. Not even just from like more recently getting re-signed for NXT after being let go at the very beginning of this whole pandemic issue. His heartfelt thank you and reaction to the news that he just had been given forced WWE to give him a chance because it showed such an emotional depth to the man, but also like in that process, he even used it to put over the story. And I think even before that, when he was doing the 24/7 title stuff, like that whole wave of things started on social media and it built to him becoming the 24/7 champion. And like all of these storylines came out of it. But this was all grassroots stuff that he envisioned himself. I think social media has done amazing stuff for wrestling.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the Young Bucks are another, and then with Omega and the page, like, and the elite overall, really used being the elite in YouTube to it was kind of there just to sort of document their journey around the world and them doing wrestling around the world, but it also became a way of them driving storylines, and they have used some storylines that they started through being the elite into AEW, which is a national like television program on TNT in America. It's quite incredible, and I think they really used that brilliantly. And the other name that sprung to mind when I was thinking about this quite recently are people like Danhausen and Warhorse. Warhorse, like when Cody announced the TNT title and was like, "I'm going to take on all challenges for you. Don't have to be signed to AEW." Warhorse took to social media to be like, "Me, I want it to be me. Like I'm going to do this." And because he's been such a interesting character that has wrestled to like for no really big major shows or anything like that, but has got a social media following and a social media following that's very active in following him. So they were then tweeting Cody, tweeting AEW, tweeting Tony Khan to give this kid a chance. And that got him a shot. Like he got on TV, and there's the Wars kid. Danhausen and his character and his presence on social media and on YouTube has led to him getting signed with Ring of Honor. Like it's really, really impressive.
Yeah, and you've got all these people who I think have managed to make names for themselves. Just even people who don't really know about their wrestling. Like you've got Mad Kurt calling everyone a boomer.
Yeah. Oh my god.
On Twitter, like people have done really good work with social media to get their character over. I think it's worth noting though that like not all the benefits of social media are brilliant.
Oh no.
I think, you know, to some degree it has driven even more kind of you know, wrestling was always kind of about shock booking and attempting to pop people and pop the ratings and stuff like that. And I think social media has driven that even a little bit more, because the idea is now you can just create a 10-second, you know, what's going to be the clip that goes on Twitter. And that's all we want. Like, you can pretty much chuck out 90% of a Raw episode, because you only really need a few little clips that are going to go on Twitter, and that's really where you're going to get your engagement.
You just
And
need
I do
a
think,
clip of Pat McAfee kicking Adam Cole, and you're done, mate.
well, you know what? I think precisely that. Like, you know, Pat McAfee has a huge following in America, and you know, he is obviously a famous football player and commentator and podcaster now, and there are a lot of reasons to get him on the show. But I think engaged presence is the biggest reason for it, and I think, you know, it, I don't necessarily think it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to wrestling. I don't necessarily think it's takeover worthy, but fine, this is where we are now, you know. And the benefits of it is it does give other people a chance to be in that conversation too. Whereas before, that decision would have just been like, Mike Tyson is doing this thing on Raw, and that is happening, and no one else gets a look in. At least now, people like Warhorse and Zack Ryder and Drake Maverick can use social media to make a name for themselves and get themselves into the conversation and force people's hand into being like, these guys should be given TV time now.